Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you to everyone for joining us for our second virtual beer testing tonight. My name is Lisa Ercolano. I'm the orthopedic oncologist at Allegheny Health Network. And I'm a member and part of Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma. Very proud to say so, and very pleased and thankful that the team asked me to host tonight. So I think this is going to be a great night, just like our first event a couple months back. Before we get into the good stuff, let's just go ahead and get a couple of messages out there, some housekeeping items. Remember that your microphone is muted. So, but of course we want everyone kind of taking part and kind of chatting. So the chat function on the bottom of your screen, take note of that so that you can use that throughout the evening. I want to hear everything you can possibly tell me about the beer. I'm so thrilled to be here, but I can't taste it because I'm pregnant. So I need to hear the good descriptions of what you guys are tasting all night tonight, okay? Otherwise, the speaker view is going to be your best way to view tonight, and that's in the top right corner of your screen. And you all should have the agenda if you'd like to kind of have that with you. It was on the meeting invite as well as the email that came out earlier. If you want to follow along, no need to. We'll be guiding you through, but it's there if you need to. Very importantly, you'll note that all of our survivors have lays. It's just sort of our nice way to kind of be able to recognize them, because certainly we're most here to celebrate them above all. So we'll see you all with your lays on throughout the evening as well. Again, this is our second beer tasting. The first one went fantastically. It sold out. We've again sold out for this event, which is just proof of how much people care about this and want to take part and want to contribute to Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma and sarcoma research. It's been certainly a tough year in many regards. Not only have we kind of battled a global pandemic and all the difficulties that that's brought, but PCS has turned lemons into lemonade by all accounts. You doing the run walk last year and our virtual events so far this year to make sure that we're still getting the word out and getting money for research, because that's such an important goal for such a rare and sometimes very, very deadly tumor, as we all know. Important to point out, again, PCS is entirely volunteer-led. So all the folks that put this event together, nobody's on the payroll. All the money that is raised and earned goes to research and to education. So a huge, huge thank you to all the volunteers who have done all the work behind the scenes. Now we'll get it over to Jean Ribnicki for our very first tasting of East End Brewing Company's Snow Melt.
My speakers on.
The beer before you is for empirical, analytical, and educational purposes only. Any enjoyment is strictly coincidental. Please drink responsibly. Don't drink and drive. In the unlikely event that you are unable to finish the beer in front of you, but would like to have it in the near future, gently remove a piece of multi-purpose sealing wrap. I prefer the self-adhesive type. Wrap it around the top of the can, making sure to cover the opening. Maybe add a rubber or gum band to seal the deal. And carefully place the sealed can into your refrigerator for later use. Cheers!
Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're going to try some beers today. I am Gene from Vicini Distributing Company. As you may have heard already, I am coming to you from the Vicini Studios, located 200 feet underneath the Vicini compound in a bunker in a forgotten 19th century lagering cave in scenic Millvale, Pennsylvania. Welcome to Craft Beer Homeschool. Today's theme is a travel theme. Last time you had exclusively voodoo. We're going to stick with the northwestern trajectory of Pennsylvania, but we're going to skip over voodoo this time because you had them last time. Beer number one will be East End Snow Melt. Now you're probably saying, oh, I am skipping over some stuff. I'm sorry. If we can go back ever so slightly, my bad. Let's pretend this never happened. One more, please. As you know, it is Lent, and we have here before you an interactive map of all the places where you can get a fish fry in Allegheny County. If you're outside of Allegheny County, as you can see by the map, it might be some slight tough luck. Next slide, please. Now, some people eat fish for Lent, go to fish fries on Fridays and give up stuff for Lent. But back in the day, for Lent, the monks fasted. And in order to make it through the 40-day long Lenten fast, they drank beer. And the beer they drank wasn't bready or strong enough for them to drink. So they invented a new style called the Doppelbock. Other holiday specials, this is some more housekeeping items. Next slide, please. Green beer. Some people drink green beer for St. Patrick's Day. It's a public service announcement for you fine folks at home that in brewing terminology, as far as brewers go, green beer is beer that is unfinished and is young. It's still fermenting, it's still conditioning. So try to avoid green beer. Well, most certainly, I'm not serving you any green beer this evening. Now let's get into that first beer. First stop will be in Pittsburgh, East End Brewing Company in the Larimer portion of Pittsburgh, the neighborhood. And we're drinking Snow Melt. And you might be saying, hey, that sounds like a winter beer. The name alone says we're going to try and melt some snow with this beer, and you can help by cracking that open right now. East End Snow Melt is a winter warmer by style. And we still have about 16 days of winter left, if I check my calendar correctly. So we're going to use this beer to exit winter. Cheers. We're going to take a second to talk about beer itself. Welcome to Beer 101. I like to start with when talking about beer, I like to start with the Reinheitsgebot, or German purity law of 1516, which states that beer is made from water. Number one ingredient tends to be in more than 90% water. This is then malted barley, wheat or rye, but mostly barley. And if you look at this slide here, you can see the malting process. You take the barley, and you put it in a kiln or oven. Whether you put it in a kiln or oven at a low temperature for a long period of time, as you may see on the left side of your screen, you get a very light roast. To the right side of your screen, you'll see a very dark roast. You're roasting it like a coffee bean, a high heat for a short period of time. And you take this grain and you put it in a mash or lauter tun. Next slide. And you add the water, and you basically you boil the good stuff out of the grain and discard the grain. The good stuff being sugar. And then you add hops, which is a natural growing vine, not to be confused with a vine. And you take the flower or cone of the hop plant and you pick it and you gather it. Next slide, please. This is the spice of the beer. It's also a natural preservative. And if you want to make a German style beer, you want to use German hops. So what they do is pelletize it, so it travels without oxidizing over long periods of time. And then you add yeast. Yeast eats sugar and produces bubbles and alcohol, CO2 and alcohol. And what you have left is beer. And cheers. So English style winter warmer is a little more bracing ale. The style comes from England. If you look at your beer, it is a deep mahogany hue, has a slightly elevated alcohol content, and you might be tasting a little bit of sweetness, you might be tasting a little spiciness. All of these flavors that you're tasting are derived from the interplay of the type of malts they use and the type of hops. And actually the yeast is a contributing factor as well. So cheers. Thank you. I was just about to ask for any questions, and then Gretchen, Kurt's sister, came across with this beautiful question. What's the definition of an ale? Thank you, Gretchen. The definition is the type of yeast, and it's actually just a couple of strains of DNA in the yeast. The difference between an ale and a lager is the determining factor. We'll be drinking all ales today. Ales are historically older. The yeast ferments, eats the sugar at ambient temperature, room temperature, maybe even a little warmer. It takes about 3 to 5 days to ferment. And when the yeast is done eating the sugar, it flocculates or rises to the top of the liquid. Lager, the unconjugated German verb for to store, takes longer. Lagers ferment at cooler temperatures and take 5 to 6 weeks to ferment. And when the yeast is done, it sinks to the bottom or flocculates to the bottom. And that is the sole difference between an ale and a lager. Ales or lagers can be strong, not strong, dark, light, sweet, hoppy. The determining factor is the yeast. Are there any other questions at this juncture before we move on? Then cheers. And I do believe it's back to you, Dr. Ercolano.
All right, great, thank you. So we're gonna kind of move to a quick little review, just to let you guys know what's been going on with our sarcoma program over at AGH at Allegheny Health Network. Allegheny Health Network, of course, has had a longstanding orthopedic department, as well as a cancer treatment program and cancer institute. But the orthopedic oncology group, so the sarcoma division within the orthopedic department, is relatively new. We kind of started up in 2014, and that's when I arrived. And at that time, I was finished up with all of my training and was sort of tasked with starting this program. Next slide. It's certainly not built into a training program as you go along medical school and residency and fellowship and throughout your training program. You don't necessarily get the specifics about how to start a program from scratch. So that was definitely a challenge, but these are some of the takeaways. These are some of the things that I've learned along the way that, certainly aren't unique to only this process, but just further proof that you have to surround yourself with the right people, the right opportunities to kind of make a program or make anything flourish. And that's what I've learned. So, Doctors Weiss and Goodman, who are on this call, part of PCS, they are some of my first mentors. These are the people that I learned from along the way. And what I realized is, in starting a program, what you can do is take the pieces that work best for you from all of these different places that you've visited and learned, and put those together to build what you think is the best way to do it. It of course goes without saying that you have to surround yourself with bright and caring people. So they've got to be smart and driven, and they've got to care. And I very luckily was able to just sort of walk into that environment. Everybody from the top down, in my department, in my office, in the entire cancer center. As you all probably know, to take care of sarcomas, it is an extremely multidisciplinary effort. It's not just the surgeon, it's the medical oncologist and the radiation doctors and the pathologists and radiologists and the rehabilitation people. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And we've really built, to everyone's credit, over, at AHN, a program where that it's the people that make it flourish and that do the work to take care of our patients. Certainly not without issues, not without some kinks to work out. Any big program or institution is going to have lots of red tape and kind of slow going with change. But you just kind of keep your head down and keep pushing. And again, we've just had amazing people being able to kind of roll with that and work these problems out and make them the best that they can be. Lastly, I think taking advantage of opportunities, collaborating, communicating. It sounds sort of simple and cliched, but it's so key. So certainly the people that I gathered along the way on my training journey that have been mentors for me. Now I am also a member of several groups within the orthopedic oncology department or community, I should say. So there's a group of young orthopedic oncologists who our goal is to build multi-institutional research projects. As you all know, being a rare disease, it is difficult to do studies on things with small numbers. And so by collaborating, we're able to do that. AHN also has a collaboration with Johns Hopkins. So we can sort of work with them very closely on research projects, clinical trials, a number of things that can benefit patients. And I also take part in a bi-weekly sarcoma conference with multiple sarcoma programs in the region, including West Virginia University, which is now part of PCS as we build and build. And in that way, whenever we see a patient in our offices, in our program, they sort of have built-in third, fourth, fifth opinions, because we have access to all these, very smart people. And as much as we'd like to think that anything, medicine in particular, is black or white, and there's always one right answer, there's often not. There's often a lot of gray area. And so having lots of ideas, having people put their heads together is critical. And I think very, very important and a huge benefit to what we've built here. Next slide. So next slide. So as far as just a little bit more about our hospital, our program, we, as the most important, of course, is that we are making informed decisions based on data and knowledge and proof, as much as possible. But it's also important to push the envelope. And I think that we have a good balance of those things. You can kind of see listed here on the slide some of the things that are highlights at our institution, which are all very important. On the surgical side, we have access for individual cases to do whatever we need to do to make that case have the best possible outcome, whether that's computer navigation, robot assisted procedures, 3D printing capabilities that we have. So all of those things are very important when each patient, each situation, even if it carries the same diagnosis, can be quite different from each other and have to be treated as such. The pandemic has certainly brought to light some of the things that were probably in the works before. We've really sort of taken off with telemedicine. And I think that is been very helpful in my practice in particular, because a lot of our patients are from far away. So having the option to do telemedicine is certainly helpful for logistical reasons sometimes, just so that we can make sure we're checking in when people might not be able to make an office visit otherwise. Next slide, please. Here's just a few pictures of our new cancer center, the new building at Allegheny General, which is built onto the previously existing structure, of course. And not that a building, walls are the sole determinant of good care, but I think when you have that good care, and then you can, as a patient and a practitioner, be in a place that is bright and nice to be in and comfortable, it can only kind of help the process, especially when you have to be there for your chemo or for your treatments, to be somewhere with that is a little bit more pleasant to be in. So it's a beautiful new building. And I'll often just kind of take a walk through there just to kind of get some nice views and see some of the really nice architecture of this new building. Next slide. One of the things that I think is probably most exciting about what we're kind of building right now is the Center for Genomics and Precision Medicine. You'll see two of our leaders in that. The lab is run by Dr. Laframboise, who's in the background there, and one of our pathologists, Dr. Miller, in the foreground, who is kind of helping in particular with one of the institute-wide projects. Next slide is, as you probably know, the genetic level of things, looking at the genes, is certainly where we think that so much more information is going to come from. We're starting to nail down more and more of understanding when a tumor, when we look at the makeup of that tumor, what are the little bits and pieces of it that have gone wrong, turned on or turned off. And we're starting to be able to develop medicines, right? Therapies that can target those issues. We're still far from really, getting the best drugs that we want and being able to target them as well as we want, but we're getting there. And I think our new lab is just one way that we're going to be better at it in our program. So this is applicable for real-time decision-making right now. So if we have a tumor, we can test it in Dr. Laframboise's lab, and we can see what mutations it has. And so that can guide decisions in treatment. We are also doing multiple projects within the lab, institute-wide and in sarcoma in general. We actually just enrolled our first sarcoma patient in an institute-wide study where we will be testing the tumor sample as well as blood samples, which we refer to as liquid biopsies, seeing if we're going to be able to just use a blood draw as a way to screen, to diagnose cancers, to stage them, to monitor their response to treatment, and surveil them, surveil patients when they're in remission with no disease. As many of you know, the usual means of doing that are scans at different intervals and other means that we think this will be more sensitive, more specific, and hopefully more actionable. So this is really exciting stuff, and we're really thrilled to get going on this brand new lab with lots of, I tell Dr. Leframbois all the time, all of his fancy machines that I don't understand them entirely, how they work and exactly how A gets to B, but it's really important, and I'm thrilled that we're doing this. Next slide. So here's just a list of a couple of ongoing research efforts that we're working on. The genomics projects kind of listed at the top, and a couple of other ones that we're working on in collaboration with other groups as well. So again, thanks for being here, everybody. And I hope this was informative. And now we're gonna go back to Jean for our second tasting of Log Yard Brewing's Johnny Flannel.
Can't hear me. Gene, you're muted.
Hey, I'm not muted anymore. Anyway, thank you, Dr. Ercolano. At this point in time with Log Yard, we're traveling north up 28, up 66, into the Endor-like region known as Cook's Forest, into Kane, Pennsylvania. And we're visiting the gentleman at Log Yard Brewing Company. Say hello, everyone, the people at Log Yard Brewing Company. I'm going to take my
Hello, folks.
Johnny Flannel and get ready to have some. We'll talk about the beer. We'll talk about the brewery.
Gene, I appreciated the Roll Out the Barrel. That's a nice song.
I wish I had written it myself. Now, gentlemen, I dropped the ball on the last beer for Dr. Ercolano, who is not joining us in drinking this evening. So we're going to have to describe in depth this beer. First of all, we have Royce Novosel Johnson, and we have Michael Dunn, the co-founders and CEOs, boss men of Log Yard Brewing in Kane, Pennsylvania. Perhaps you've heard of Kane, Pennsylvania. Maybe you have a camp near there. Maybe you've gone fishing. But anyway, it's worth the road trip. And this beer number 2 tastes better out of the Log Yard glass, it turns out, is the Johnny Flannel West Coast style IPA. And cheers.
Cheers. First of all, before we get into it, we just wanted to thank you guys for the invitation, and also, applaud you on everything you guys are working for. Very admirable cause, and keep up the good work. Mike can speak to the beer a little bit if Gene, if you don't want to.
Sure. Be happy to. So Johnny
I
Flannel.
want to.
What's that?
I said I want to speak. No, go ahead, Michael. I'm just kidding. Sorry. Humorous moment.
Yeah, that's no worries. So Johnny Flannel for us is a West Coast style IPA, as we mentioned, and we don't necessarily like the traditional, extremely high IBU or bitter beers above the 70 or 80% IBU range. Like some of the West Coast style that you really need something to wash it down afterwards, or a bite of steak. So for us, this was a good balance between what we felt is our rendition of a West Coast style. It's going to have a little pininess to it, as well as some of the malt backbone that you won't get in a lot of the traditional New England style IPAs. And as far as the finish, it's going to be very clean and crisp, well balanced, something that you can drink with most meals, chicken, beef, most proteins. So very well balanced.
And we grow our own flannels up here. We plant them in the spring, and then our little flannel jackets come out by about the fall time, and that's when we're able to harvest them and put them into this beer. So these are Pennsylvania flannel, beers here.
Now, from this beer, I'll take a moment to describe the IPA or India Pale Ale, just in general terms. In England, they came out with the Pale Ale, which at the time was the lightest beer ever made. People outside of England liked the Pale Ale. However, the Pale Ale was lower in alcohol. And as I said previously, hops and alcohol, I didn't say that previously, are both natural preservatives. So in order for the beer to make the long seafaring voyage with specificity to the English colonies in India, they had to bump up both the alcohol and the hop content. And thus a new style was born. Then it came to America, and we tweaked it even further. This doesn't have English hops in it. This has American hops. Am I right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Otherwise,
Correct.
To the eye, this is what an IPA looks like. IPAs tend not to be so hazy. A little bit of hops in there, a little bit of pinishness, a little malty sweet backbone. Anything else you guys would like to add for our co-host who cannot drink at this juncture?
Sure. It is, I would say, a good segue into something that is a traditionally lighter beer, or similar to a lager that has a little bit more bite to it.
These are all true things. So guys, let's hear a little bit about yourselves. Royce, we'll start with you.
Okay, sure. I'm from Kane, Pennsylvania originally. I graduated here. I went to college, Dartmouth College up in New Hampshire, corporate America for about 7 or 8 years after that, and then moved back to Kane to take over a family timber business. I'm fourth generation in the timber industry. Mike and I worked together in DC during one of the stints, and he was trying to start a brewery in Northern Virginia. I was kicking the idea around, and the difficulties there, the cons as far as cost of real estate, cost of employment, all of these things. Kane could absolutely bring these to the table. And so I came back just to understand our forest holdings, and then we started a brewery based around it. So a lot of things deal with what's popular up here, what this whole area was started for, which is, logging, timber, forestry, things like that. I mean, if you ever drive up in this area, you're surrounded by trees, you're surrounded by forest. And so all of our names have, a tip of the cap to one of those different categories. So this one, for instance, the can itself, this is a throwback picture of my dad from the late 70s, early 80s, when he's rocking a flannel shirt, a straight brim hat before the straight brim hats were cool. But we have a bunch of these pictures of, 4 generations of guys working either in the woods or, in the log yard itself. And that's where our production site is for the brewery. We're in a facility where, this is where we used to store our high lifts and our bulldozers and everything like that. So it's very fitting to the area. And we always knew that when we started, and the way that Mike and I wanted to start this is, we might be an hour north of 80. We might be in a tough spot where not a lot of people come to, but if we make a good enough beer, we want to get it everywhere that we can. And that's kind of been our goal, and our intent is to help put, an economic impact into this town and help it in any way we can, because, at that point, and probably still currently, Northern Virginia and the DC area weren't struggling as much financially as, small towns like Kane. So that's why we started it here. We did it intentionally. The name we did intentionally in our beer styles and then the names of our beers. We do it all intentionally. So,
And I thought Royce was crazy at first when I told him that my wife and I were going to start a brewery in Arlington, Virginia, and he's like, "Well, why not do it in Kane?" I almost hung up the phone on him and said, "No, I'm not going to. Why would I ever do that?" And took some convincing, and it's one of the best decisions we've made. So, I mean, my personal background is my family has had 52 restaurants or so up and down the Eastern Seaboard. I've been in hospitality and software, from owning software companies to working for Oracle and Micros, and just decided I didn't like the corporate world any longer, and been home brewing for a number of years, and got Royce into home brewing as I was coming up to visit him in Kane after we had worked together in DC, and finally decided that if I was leaving corporate America and having working in the software industry, that why not have a greater economic impact on people that need it, and we can focus on distribution and getting our high quality craft beer out to people that normally would have to pay a much higher price for beer and the volumes that we were thinking that we were going to produce initially. So fast forward to 3 years later, we're probably at about year 10 or 12 of where we thought we would be. But it's fantastic. And we would love for any of you to come up and visit anytime. Both now Royce has lived here for on and off his entire life, and I now live here full time with my family, and we're a mile or less from the brewery and tap room. So if you're ever in town, it's just a quick phone call or text message, and we'd be happy to give you a tour.
And lastly, sorry, leave it at this, Gene, so we're not long-winded. Kane is about equidistant between Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and about Cleveland area. But I'd say 95% of the people in this town associate themselves with Pittsburgh because they feel like we are built the same way, we think the same way, we support you guys, absolutely. God forbid the 5% that feel otherwise, but I just wanted to say that's something that we support everything that's going on in Pittsburgh because I mean, you're an extension of us, and in some ways, we're an extension of you guys as well. So again, appreciate you guys having us on here. Come see us sometime.
You're still stuck on here, my friend. There's been some questions via chat. Someone was concerned. It scrolled up, so I missed it. So it's theoretically possible to get your beer in the Pittsburgh area, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Through Vicini's.
Good plug, Gene. You really
just lobbed that right up there.
Actually asked that question, Gene. But yeah, it comes through Vicini's. We bring in 2021, we have 25 new styles coming out. We take a delivery down to Vicini's in Millvale about twice a month. And from there, it hits the local retail shops. It's going to hit your Giant Eagles and your Whole Foods and Wegmans and different places like that. So we have different ones that come down all the time. But yeah, we bring it down there, and then they distribute it to different places. So if you have a local place that you like to buy your beer and it's not there, it's simply, you just ask them. and they can get it there, or go to the next place, or let us know, or let G know, and we can get it to you.
Don't go to the next place.
Yeah.
Just speak to the general manager. Tell them your name's Karen. Done deal. They'll bring it in. No problem.
Is there anything left from that?
Guys, I'm very glad that you were able to join us.
Anything we can do for you guys, absolutely.
We're getting a lot of scrolls here that people want to come up there, which is beautiful. You can get their beer here until then. You do serve food at
Yes.
the pub?
We have a rotating menu. It changes every week. Royce's wife, Katie, handles that. Fantastic. As a matter of fact, this week we have most often it's noshes. We don't necessarily want to be a full service restaurant, but we do have 5 or 6 options available. This week it's Thai food, which is great. It's fantastic. I tried it earlier. The chicken satay was incredible. But yes, so we do have food. The menu is ever evolving, and cuisine. Would love to have any of you anytime.
In the interest of full disclosure, my wife and I took a visit up to Kane, Pennsylvania over the summer, and the food there was awesome. The views were beautiful, most gracious hosts. I can highly recommend it. And you probably already have a camp up near there anyway. I have to get that in there one more time.
Yeah.
And we're going to see you in a few months with when you're both back to carve pumpkins for our lumberjack-o'-lantern.
I thought we were going to have to strip the bark off of birch trees first.
That's true. That's true.
To all the people viewing at home, this is how I was able to get these guests. I sold my soul. I'll be skinning trees and carving pumpkins and roasting pumpkins selflessly for you guys.
No,
if you had anything else to add, now would be the time.
No, we just Pennsylvania has been a very welcoming state to us. All of the breweries across Pennsylvania are fantastic. They've welcomed us with open arms. We do the same. And we just want to thank them and thank all of you. And
they're on the call. The people that, East End, Ellicottville, North Country, these guys have all opened their doors to us and been very, very gracious. So we're just very appreciative. Thank you guys.
And that is a lovely segue to the ongoing theme of the entirety of this presentation. I'd like to thank you for keeping it up, keeping the ball up in the air. We'll be talking more about Pennsylvania and our region specifically throughout the program. That's the theme. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
And now back to you, Dr. Ercolano.
My name is Joe Rodriguez, 57 years old, live in Erie, Pennsylvania. We have 2 daughters.
Joe is fortunate to be a retired school teacher. We've lived in Erie our whole life. We met in 90. We got married in 92.
June of 2018,
Yes.
had an appointment with the doctor because I'd found a lump in my right groin and decided to have it checked out. They did a sonogram.
Sonogram, yep.
And then they did an MRI. And after the MRI came back, she said, well, we don't know what it is, but we know that it's not benign. Turned out to be leiomyosarcoma. The doctors here in Erie really were not familiar at all with leiomyosarcoma.
I took the call from Dr. Nelson. He's like, I want you to talk to this Dr. Galano. I hung up with him, I called the number, and I was in full-blown tears. Someone has to help me. And she's like, I have an appointment tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning. I said, we'll be there. I ran it back in and I said, let's go. We're going home to pack our bags. That was our first trip to Pittsburgh. We met with Dr. Galano and she hooked us up with Dr. Greenberg, both from Pittsburgh, and said that Joe would have to do some chemo and some radiation. Dr. Galano was straightforward. She's like, this is very aggressive and we're gonna be aggressive right back. She gave us the best case scenario. She gave us the worst case scenario. the doctor knew and had confidence that Joe could beat this.
The people at Allegheny General on the 9th floor were exceptional.
Yeah.
The nurses, the doctors who did rounds, everybody was
Amazing.
being able to listen to music while I was in the hospital was a way for me to keep myself normal. The walks around the floor,
Oh yeah.
I'd come walking by with my pole and my chemo bags and my little speaker,
Little boombox.
boombox, playing music. People would just turn and
Nurse
look.
would say, "Here comes the music, man."
After a while, they knew who it was. Worrying about things really doesn't help anything. It just, I think, weakens you. So I decided not to worry, and I got lucky because I didn't have any really nasty side effects of the chemo.
Our normal routine, we'd both be going to work. Joe would come home, start the dinner. When he felt good, you knew it was a good day if I got a call at work saying, "I made dinner." So, and I could kind of knew he was on the mend. But yeah, so now he's back to our menu board and our menu every night and awesome dinners.
So 2 years cancer-free. The biggest piece of advice I could give to anyone who has to go through this is to stay positive. I know people want to get down, they want to feel bad, they want to feel sorry for themselves, but if your attitude is good, I think your body reacts much better.
And now moving forward, we think about that Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma. Dr. Ercolano had said to us at an appointment, would we be interested in joining the Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma 5K?
And I said, absolutely. Anything you need me to do to help you beat sarcoma in the future is, if I'm able, I'm going to do it.
Like we said, she was the one that gave us hope. And so now we feel like it's our job now to help others, be as aggressive and fight back.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who had anything to do with this. And the fact that Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma is working to find even more cures for this disease is tremendous. I will continue to help support them as long as I can.
Well, on behalf of PCS and everyone tonight, Joe and Amy, I want to thank you guys for sharing with us and letting everyone see and hear your story. From the get-go, we had many difficult decisions and difficult conversations, and I think your attitude, start to finish, I never once saw any glimmer of anything except, what's going on, what are the details of this, and what do we have to do, and let's do it. And so I give you all the credit in the world for being so positive and going through it with such grace. And you were the music man for sure. That was always fun I could always find you. That was easy. You were usually in the hallway, but I could always find you because I just listened for the music. So, I think this is only a small part of the, as I said, the grace that you both have shown through everything.
Paul, it was, all I can say is thank you. You did a tremendous job. You helped make it easy for us. As anything we can do to help in the future, we'd be more than happy to do that. Just want to thank you again and wish you and Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma nothing but the best.
I agree. Thank you so much.
Well, now I know that we've got a daily schedule for dinner. We might start there. Pretty good. It looks pretty good.
Well, you're welcome anytime.
Anytime,
Right.
the house is always open.
All right, I can find your address.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, guys. All right, and now we're on to our third tasting with Jean of Ellicottville Brewing Company's Foggy.
We're about to cross over the border into New York. Don't tell my boss. Into Ellicottville, Holiday Valley, not too far from Kane. I think Kane's 2 hours from anywhere, so it's probably about 2 hours. But it's a lovely drive. And we're going to drink some Ellicottville Foggy. Ellicottville Brewing Company has been in the business for almost 25 years now, if my records are correct. And this is a hazy IPA. This is what the kids are drinking these days.
So he had double the income on his tax bill.
Oh.
So like.
I feel like I'm interrupting someone, but that's okay because it's beer for a good cause. Foggy, it's hopped with Simcoe and Mosaic hops. This is the American contribution to the IPA style that I described earlier. It's hazy. It has some unmalted barley, some unmalted oats in there to contribute to the haziness. It's a softer IPA, a little bit sweeter, a little more floral. A little easier to drink, coming in at 6.3% alcohol by volume. Kind of hides some of the alcohol in there. Cheers. And you'll notice in our trek, we're going to go to the next slide and talk about beer in America. Now, you are, assuming you are in New York or Pennsylvania or some very limited parts of West Virginia, you are in the beer belt of America. Now, this is for a couple of different reasons. Why we have good beer. We were settled by English, German, Irish, and Eastern European settlers who are best known for brewing beer. And we are at a similar latitude to grow good barley and to grow hops a little bit further to the north. So between our collective ancestry and our geographical location, I did forget the water. We tend to have softer water. So as we look at this chart, these are the first active breweries in the New World. Not too many down south. A little warm for fermentation. Barley doesn't grow so well. Hops don't grow well at all. You'd have to import that stuff if you wanted to start a brewery. And then the settlers who settled here, English, Irish, German, good stock for brewing beer. If you look at the globe, the closer you get to the equator, the better the wine. The farther you get from the equator, wine's not as indigenous. You tend to go to beer at that point. You go too far north and you get spirits. Because you got to preserve that stuff up north and it's real cold. So you are in the beer belt. Pennsylvania produces the second most amount of craft beer in America. California produces the most. We were number one for a while, but I think they built a couple more breweries. We have an insane amount of breweries per capita. Allegheny County specifically has more breweries than anywhere else in Pennsylvania. And, you know, if you look at Pennsylvania versus California on this map, you'll see that California is probably about 3 or 4 Pennsylvanias put together. We almost make as much beer as those guys. Next slide, please. And here are some of the original breweries. You'll see Iron City in our Yuengling. Yuengling was is the oldest American brewery, and then Shell is the second oldest American brewery. Iron City's up there. You are firmly in the beer belt, people. Hence the reason why we chose beer for this event, because we're Pennsylvanians and we brew and drink beer. We do drink more beer than we brew, which is why we had to bring some Ellicott across the border for our enjoyment this evening. So a lot of people will describe a New England style IPA is noted for hazy. There was a point in time in beer history where you tried to make beer clear. And a couple of years ago in Vermont, somebody said, hey, I'm getting some good flavors by not making this beer clear. Residual proteins, there's some compounds in hops that'll, yeast will also make the beer cloudy. So it's a softer IPA. You'll notice if you compare and contrast to the Johnny Flannel is a little more forward and beer-like in its character, where this is like a whole new world. I'm getting another question from Gretchen. Shell still exists. It's on this map somewhere. I can't see it because I have the text covering it, but it is in Minnesota. New Ulm, Minnesota, to be precise. And, rich Northern European beer brewing, making, drinking tradition. Are there any other questions at this juncture? Ellicottville's another nice little ride. We can go to the next slide, document our journey. If you look at this slide, you'll see that we started in Pittsburgh, here in Pittsburgh for me, in Pittsburgh for the rest of you. And we traveled up to Log Yard. We crossed over the border to Ellicottville. And we'll end up in North Country with another special secret surprise. And then Joe N asked about Duquesne beer. And that's been resurrected, but it's a testament. In Europe, you didn't import beer. Every town had its own brewery. Everybody had the local brewery. That's where you went. That's where you went to get beer. It was your local brewery. I have another question here about Straub, Pennsylvania's second oldest family-owned independent brewery, and they're up in not too far from Kane. You can go see some elk, drink off the Eternal Tap, and maybe you'll go there after you go to Log Yard when you have no palate anymore, and drink some of that stuff. You have another fine Pennsylvania brewery. More testament to our history in beer. We were nothing but a rich history in beer. Philadelphia was the original brewing capital of the United States before Milwaukee, before Prohibition. Little more than 100 years ago. No, about 120 years ago, Philadelphia had a minimum of 50 breweries within 50 miles of downtown Philadelphia. From colonial days moving forward, we've done nothing but make beer in Pennsylvania. And I believe this could possibly be, if there are no further questions, we can go back to Dr. Ercolano.
Actually, Gene, we're going to me.
Oh, I don't have that piece of paper in front of me. I'm sorry, Dr. Ercolano. Welcome, Dr. Mark.
Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the board and the committee that put this together, first off, cheers to everyone. I'd like to start by thanking all of those who've joined us tonight. We are particularly honored to have with us tonight Dr. Robert Ferris, the head of the Hillman Cancer Center, and Dr. David Bartlett, the head of the Allegheny Health Network Cancer Institute. It's our honor to have you with us. I'd also like to salute all the survivors that are with us. It's been an exciting year for Pittsburgh Cures Sarcoma. We learned how to do a race virtually. We learned what beer from Voodoo tasted like. We are tonight broadening our horizons with our beer education. Most importantly, we spent the year raising funds for sarcoma research. In 2020, our virtual race netted $115,338. Our first beer event, $7,987. And our day of giving and general donations brought the year's total up to $144,044. With all of our expenses factored in, we had a proficiency of 79.6% money raised to our mission. When we started as an independent 501c3, our goal was 80%. So in our first year, we've managed to accomplish that goal. This event, by the way, has grossed $12,700 and netted research $10,541. So I thank you all for your participation and for all of your help. Pittsburgh Cures Sarcoma has supported the Tissue Bank and Tumor Registry with a grant of $50,000 to continue their research. We have purchased an ultra-cold freezer and repaired lab equipment for one of the research labs for a total of $13,476. We've donated $250 to the Hillman Sarcoma Fund and funded the Hillman Gala for another $250. We've put aside $30,000 in emergency funds for all of the wet labs in the tri-state area. Sarcoma support for 2020 was $68,476. For 2021, we're opening up new vistas. With the help of the Medical Advisory Committee, chaired by this lady sitting to my right, we will start to solicit research grant requests over the next few months, and then use these funds that we have for the purpose of supporting research. We will incorporate the funds from the race on June 26th into the granting process. I would like to personally thank the committee and all of the volunteers that helped pack and deliver beers for tonight's event. It was impressive how quickly 36 cases of beer that were stored in my garage were broken down, bagged, tagged, and distributed. I'd urge you all to sign up for the race, June 26th. If you want to drink beer for that one, you're on your own, but at least you're educated. And now I'd like to turn this over to Sue Soot, our race director.
Thank you, Mark. And I just want to add something to what you said about a garage full of beer. I always have a garage full of race things, so I can appreciate where you're coming from. For those of you who don't know me, I am Sue Soot. I am one of the original members of the Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma Committee. My late husband was Bill Soot, who was the race director, co-founder of the race, and proud member of Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma. I would like to thank the original members that we have remaining. It's Cindy Ferretto, Marissa Smith, and Kurt. And a special thank you to our dear friend and #1 volunteer from the beginning, which was Dave Fortune. Dave is on the line tonight, I think, his team has handled the parking for our events from day one. So we want to give him a big thank you. Kathy McQuaid, another dear friend who now has taken over and chairs the raffle committee. So you guys are the best, you rock, and I love you both. Also, a big thank you to all the other volunteers and the members who shortly joined there after the first race. Renee McIntyre, the Frederick family, Susan Cullinan, Kathy Dolai, and many other volunteers too numerous to mention. Just from the bottom of our hearts, we just want to thank everybody that has participated from day one, 2011 PCS Rocks. Now I'm going to send it back to Jean for our final testing of North Country Brewing. Thank you all.
All right, everybody. Last but by no means least, we're going to end with North Country. And I do believe we have a special guest up in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, coming all the way from Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania. To enjoy this beer. You guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Yeah,
Yes.
there you go. How are you?
We're doing good. How about yourself?
John and Austin, I've never met you before in my life. I can't pick you out of a police lineup. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, we're happy to be here for a good cause.
Amen.
Yes.
And there's two good causes.
Oh, yeah.
The second one being beer.
Yes.
Thank you, Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma, for inviting us today and inviting these gentlemen. And we talked earlier about the Reinheitsgebot, or German Purity Law 1516, which says none of the stuff in this beer goes in beer, but we're not in Germany, so we have that luxury. Before we crack this sucker open, I have to ask you, gentlemen, are there any nuts or lactose in this for any of those allergetic people out there?
Yes, there is lactose in this beer.
All right, so if you're lactose intolerant, don't open that beer. Give it to a friend. Beers for sharing. So, sour series. You guys have been brewing beer since?
Oh, 8 years for me. Oh, at North Country?
Yes.
Yes, 2000. Ooh.
Yeah, about 8 years
Yeah.
for you. And then I've been brewing for North Country for about 3.5 years now.
Nice.
Yeah.
The father and son team, I'm guessing, based on
Yes.
your last name?
Yes.
And thank you. I was gracious. You were gracious enough to allow me into your brewery and to climb all over stuff. The video montage. You know, everybody is. I may have been to more than 1,000 breweries up until about a year ago. Then it slowed down.
Yeah, just a bit.
Trapped at home. So one of the underlying themes of this was, let's get out of town. Let's drive around. Let's go see some beer. But we can try and keep it mostly within Pennsylvania. So this Banana Foster's Sour that I'm about to enjoy, and hopefully the rest, we're having this beer for dessert. It diverges greatly from the German Purity Law, as I previously said, because it has, take it away, John.
This beer was, it's a kettle sour. So we brew it usually on a Friday, add Lactobacillus, which is a bacteria, the same bacteria that you find in yogurt.
There you go. I was going to ask you that question, pop it up there, but you answered it right off the bat. Thank you.
Sounds good. That Lactobacillus will produce lactic acid, which gives it that tart, sour taste to it. After it sours through the weekend, we go through our normal brewing process, boil, add the hops, everything else that kills off the bacteria before we ferment. But we also brewed this with a ton of graham cracker, vanilla, about 1,000 pounds of banana, and lactobacillus and brown sugar, and cinnamon as well. So it's drinks more like a dessert beer. It's got a little bit of tartness. You can kind of pick up some of the banana, a little bit of the cinnamon, and some of the graham cracker as well. So
Yeah, the nice thing about this sour with the lactose is that lactose, that milk sugar, actually cuts the tartness from that the lactobacillus, the lactic acid. So it makes it extremely drinkable. Yeah, like this is one of our dessert sours. We have a nice little line of dessert sours now. Coming up, we have a blueberry cobbler, which is another sour in our series. But yeah, it's just tastes like grandma's dessert.
Yeah.
And it's still beer first, which is something that I appreciate. It's certainly beer. It's not over the top. I'm not getting a face full of bananas. There's hints of that. I have to look for it. I have to taste it. The acidity of the beer makes it a good food beer, particularly a good like rich dessert beer. If I was having dessert, this would be a perfect complement to that.
And it's nice and light, so it's not a heavy dessert beer after eating a nice heavy meal, so you can have that nice finishing lighter beer as well.
We do have a question from Jenna, who asks, 1,000 pounds of bananas. When do you add the bananas?
We will add the banana in secondary. So we will brew the beer, ferment it in our fermenter, and then rack it off of the yeast. And we add the banana puree in our secondary.
That's a very good question, Jenna, and an excellent answer, Brewer John. And where are you located? There's all kinds of gobbledygook on the walls. You in the brewery right now?
Yeah, we're in our office right now. We wanted to try to get a nice background of the shiny stainless or some barrels or something, but we just don't get a good Wi-Fi signal out there. So
you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, stuck in the office.
You know, I am in the, I don't know if you've been on the whole time, but I'm currently in our forgotten lagering. I'm 200 feet underneath the Vicini facility right now. And the connectivity is actually oddly good. It might have to do with the vaccine that I got.
5G.
Yeah.
Questions at this point in time would be great if anybody had any. If Dr. Ercolano were to visit you guys in a couple months when she could drink beer once again.
Yes. Yeah.
Would you roll out the red carpet for her?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Beautiful. Joanne loves your brewery and visits many times.
Cheers, Joe.
Dave Stump loves that blueberry cobbler.
Oh, yeah.
Katie asks, how many sours are in your series?
Oh man. We're constantly coming out.
Yeah,
with new
we're
ones.
constantly doing new ones. Like just in the next month, we will have cherry lime, which is a new addition to our sour series, and passion fruit orange and guava, which is also another new addition. So whenever we get the chance, we're always putting out a new sour, and if it does well, we'll bring it back.
Yeah, I mean, we're always experimenting with different types of flavors and fruits and whatever we can get our hands on. So we have fun doing it.
We have another awesome question here from Jermaine, who asks, what is secondary?
Okay.
Secondary fermentation.
Yes. Secondary is after the beer has fully fermented out, we will rack the beer off of the yeast and add it into a secondary vessel, but we're still adding banana, which has some sugar, which you will get a secondary fermentation that will occur.
I'll answer this one quickly because the questions keep popping up. But Gretchen, Kurt's sister, asks, do all sours have lactobacillus? And I'll quickly answer, no. There's also a more pernicious yeast that we call I'm forgetting the second part of it. Lambicus. Go ahead. The other way of
Brettanomyces.
Brettanomyces lambicus.
Yes.
As a trickier way of making a sour, and once you use this yeast, you're basically making sours for the rest of your life unless you nuke your brewery.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So the easier way is to use lactobacilli.
Correct.
substantially less pernicious, doesn't stick
Yes,
around.
very so.
Yes,
very much
yes.
so.
Gate Stump asks, how about a raspberry sour beer? I'm sorry, I'm trying to answer, but these questions keep coming up.
We actually just had our raspberry. It was a raspberry pomegranate sour. You guys probably have it right now. It's our scarlet sour.
That is actually what your guy Dale served me when I visited your brewery.
Okay.
Photos. And Dar Wasinski would like it. Wisniewski would like a dark chocolate raspberry beer.
It's funny enough about that. A couple years ago, we did a sour raspberry porter. So very similar.
Ellicottville also, who we just tried, has one in their portfolio, but that's not nothing's off the table in the beer world anymore.
Of course not.
Never.
It's a brave new world for brewing beer.
Oh yeah, it sure is. It has come a long way in the last 15 years.
And it hit fast forward in the last like 4, I want to say.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah.
Things are off the charts. When I got into the business in the early 90s, you were lucky to try to recreate styles, European styles.
Yeah.
That was the thing. We're going to make a Maibach.
Oh yeah.
Crazy. Maibach. We're going to try and make a Kolsch.
Yes. That's kind of how I got into into brewing. Was my father owned the first craft beer bar, import beer bar in Butler County, and he bought it in 1985. I think he opened up in 86, and so I grew up around import beers. He had some of the first local PA craft beers in there, and fell in love with the beer. Went off to college, couldn't afford good imports, so learned how to homebrew. So that's what got me into homebrewing.
That's actually how a lot of this began.
Yes.
So I grew up helping him bottle.
Yeah, he was my cheap labor.
Yeah, it's funny enough, I'm a 4th generation brewery worker. My great-grandfather and grandfather both worked for Iron City. Obviously, my dad here, John, works for North Country, and so do I. So I guess it was destined to be, so I can't complain.
I have to answer a question from Rod Rothaus, who asked me to define pernicious. And we were talking about Brettanomyces lambicus. This yeast is really difficult to get rid of, Rod. That's what makes it pernicious. Very tough to go away. I've known at least 2 breweries that have opted to dispose of the entirety of their brewing equipment because they couldn't get it out of their system. It just doesn't go away. It doesn't want to die.
Yeah, a lot of those breweries that are the wild breweries that use that Brett for Brettanomyces, that's strictly what they do. It's tough to brew a wild, funky beer and clean beer in the same brew house, in the same brewery.
And I had the distinct luxury. One of the ideas that gave me the idea for the travel to breweries, Zoom meetings, Zoom beer schools. Our Vicini Distributing Company, beer since 1933, recently picked up Rodenbach Brewery out of Belgium, which in the early 90s was the first sour beer that I had ever had all time ever, and was the only sour beer for years moving forward. Rodenbach Alexander was the sourest thing until I tried a Cantillon. Difficult to get in Western Pennsylvania.
It is.
And
unfortunately.
So I now sell Rodenbach in addition to North Country, Log Yard, Ellicottville, Victory, Bells, and much, much, much more. And we had to do, it was my duty as an employee of Vicini Distributing Company that we had to do a sampling with Rudy, the head brewer of 25 years of Rodenbach, while he was in the basement of Rodenbach. And I believe Rodenbach has more wooden vessels than anywhere else on the planet, at least Europe. and he had nothing but photos as far as vision permits. And I'm assuming English is probably the 4th or 5th language that he speaks. And we're trying his intentionally spontaneously fermented beer, which was then aged for 3 years and blended. And that was the instigation to create an online virtual beer school where we can go visit you in places. We can take people to different places, try their beer, and have some try some stuff. But the beer was sour. It was tart.
Oh yeah.
I see someone asked someone asked where I got the hat. So this is our Rooftop Hops. I don't know if you can read that. We actually make this for the convention center down in Pittsburgh. They grow the hops on the roof of the convention center, and then we use them in a beer. So unfortunately, can't get many of these hats.
It is now officially last call for questions. If anyone had any questions, now would be the time. Jermaine, I'm going to say yes. Lambics are made with Brettanomyces lambicus, the yeast strain indigenous to the air of the Valley of Lambic in Belgium. If you look around you, you can't see it, but there's yeast in your air right now. One final question. Megan Bohm would like to know about the hops at the convention center.
Okay, yeah, the convention center up on the roof actually have a little garden that they decided to start growing hops. And they approached us 2 years ago about brewing a special beer for them using those hops. So every fall after they harvest the hop flower, we will brew a fresh hop beer with their grown hops that grow right downtown Pittsburgh on the roof of the convention center.
Yeah, unfortunately this year with COVID, not much going on at the convention center, but hopefully next year we can get a new batch going and getting that beer out there. It's a great fresh hop beer.
You can still get those hops though, right, guys?
Yes.
Even if you can't turn around and give it to the convention center. All right.
Yes.
Noted. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
The beer. Thank you for the virtual tour of Western Pennsylvania as it pertains to beer. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you had any final things to say, gentlemen, up in Slippery Rock, now would be the time to say it.
I just wanted to thank everybody for hosting this and inviting us along, and it's a great cause, and we're happy to help out and do whatever we can for the cause. So
yeah, great cause and some great beer. Can't beat that.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, and cheers. Perpetual cheers to you, gentlemen.
Yes,
thank
cheers.
you.
Thank
Very
you.
much. And now back to Dr. Ercolano, I believe.
Yes, thank you. And thank you. We'll just kind of wrap up for the night. Thank you to everyone who joined. A huge thank you to Eugene and the Vicini Distributing Company and all of our breweries tonight that shared their beer and stories and information with us. East End, Log Yard, Ellicottville, and North Country. I definitely have a good list ready to go for a couple of months from now. I'm looking forward to it.
Doctor?
Yes.
When can you drink beer again?
June. Early June.
We will make sure that you get hooked up.
Okay.
This is very selfless of you to partake in this.
No, I'm more than happy to have done it. Trust me. I'm looking forward to the beer, but there were no arms pulled for this. Don't worry. We do want to also make sure that we thank some of our teams who supported today. So Gabby's crew and the Plasmeyer family who are responsible for the glasses that everybody got, as well as Anya's Army for the goldfish treats. Thank you for those. To all, it's been said, but all of the volunteers, the PCS group, Dar, Mark, Sue, Josh, everyone, and the multiple people, many people, too many to name, who made this happen, people who delivered beer and put the packages together and everything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. How can you all help us continue to fight sarcoma? If you're a survivor, if you've lost a loved one, if you're just supporting the cause, please start by creating a team and register and get involved and participate in the run walk this year. It's going to be Saturday, June 26th. And we're not certain yet about the in-person status, but there will at the very least be a virtual event, so people can join in from wherever you feel comfortable and safe or prefer to be. But importantly, it's just, you know, that we do this and that people get involved and know that hopefully we'll be able to meet at the boathouse, but if not, we can meet again on a virtual live stream. Registration is actually now open for that, and the link is at the bottom of the agenda. So please take a peek and get registered. And otherwise, stay in touch. You can like us and follow on social media. Links are on the agenda as well. And again, thank you to everybody. And we're gonna kind of sign off here with one last video that will be for the upcoming race. Thanks, everyone.
I have a couple thank yous before we go away. Thank all of you for coming here. Thanks for participating. Thank you, Rod, for thinking ahead and getting me in on the gig. Rod was one of my students at the Pittsburgh Craft Beer School down at the Greer Cabaret Theater before the apocalypse. And now we get to teach him about beer once again. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Dar. Thanks, Dr. Mark. Thanks, Pittsburgh Cure Sarcoma. And thank you, Dr. Ercolano, once again. We're getting you some beer in the future, July.